The Two Towers, for those last four people who didn't know, is the second film in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The Lord of the Rings is one of the most well-known modern novels ever written. J.R.R. Tolkien's books have garnered a huge fan base over the years, which was later expanded when Peter Jackson's trilogy hit the big screen. One after one, the movies captured our attention and wowed us. Unknown actors became stars overnight, and the films have been a massive success. So by that introduction, you can pretty well guess what I think of Lord of the Rings. Ever since I read The Hobbit as a kid, I was a fan of J.R.R. Tolkien, but I never really thought about how they would make movies on the stories. The Two Towers covers a number of different storylines, and as you listen to this summary, just for fun, try to imagine what it sounds like to anybody who's ignorant of the movies and the books. The Two Towers continues Frodo and Sam's journey as they travel to Mordor, so that they can destroy the One Ring. The movie also follows Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli as they chase a band of Uruk-hai into the land of Rohan, because they're trying to save the captured hobbits, Merry and Pippin. It's also revealed that the wizard Saruman has been building a huge army to destroy Rohan, and he has a spy named Grima Wormtongue at King Theoden's side to poison his mind. Meanwhile, Gandalf miraculously returns to his friends, Merry and Pippin come across Treebeard and the Ents, and Frodo and Sam capture Gollum and force him to guide them into Mordor. The Two Towers introduces us to some of the most fascinating parts of the Lord of the Rings saga. One of the obvious ones is Gollum. For me, the character of Gollum was always one of the most fascinating parts of the books, partly because of the way Frodo despised him, yet couldn't help but identify with him as a former ring-bearer. Gollum's downfall due to the ring's influence is a warning sign to Frodo that he could very well end up this way too, and he tries to evoke Gollum's former identity, Smeagol, in an attempt for Gollum to redeem himself. This leads to an existential crisis between the Smeagol and Gollum sides of the character, leading to some of the best moments of the entire films. Andy Serkis is the unsung star of The Two Towers, and his performance never gets old. But there are other really interesting characters introduced in the film as well. King Theoden of Rohan is played excellently by Bernard Hill as a seasoned ruler unprepared for Saruman's armies. Grima Wormtongue was really well played by Brad Dourif as a very unlikable person, but due to a lack of self-worth rather than pure evil. His character turns to Saruman out of crippling self-hatred and envy rather than just plain old nastiness, and it makes him a more interesting character as a result. The movie also divides the focus of the story in contrast to the book. While the book focused on Theoden's nephew Éomer rather than his niece Éowyn, the movie does the opposite. Éomer is usually off-screen, and Éowyn is given a much bigger role in the story. Miranda Otto plays her as a woman who falls in love with Aragorn, but more for what he represents rather than who he is. In another departure from the book, the character of Arwen gets a number of scenes that really examine her choice to be with Aragorn and choosing a mortal life. While these scenes had previously been part of the third book's appendices, Peter Jackson keeps Arwen in focus to strengthen her impact later on in the story. Jackson also made a few changes regarding Faramir, who is the younger brother of Boromir. Faramir is given a more dramatic storyline concerning his reaction to the ring, and while this is done very well, the movie tragically cut out an essential flashback scene which involves Boromir and Faramir interacting with their father. The scene was restored for the extended edition, but to be honest, I really think it should have stayed in the theatrical cut. The extra length be damned. Now that I've brought that up, let's discuss the extended edition really quick. In all honesty, I don't care that much for the extended scenes for Two Towers. Obviously, the flashback scene is an exception, but whether it's just due to a lack of necessity or a feeling of failed attempts at humor, I'm just glad the scenes weren't in the theatrical version. All in all, though, the movie's great. Hell, the trilogy is great. They're some of my favorite movies. Any criticism I have would either be focused on the extended cutscenes, or it would just be minor nitpicking. Scenes such as the Battle of Helm's Deep and the Ent's last march continue to stick in my mind as some of the most stirring moments that I've ever watched in a movie theater. Lord of the Rings was for me what Star Wars and Harry Potter were for a lot of other people. Certainly I recommend the films, and I also suggest that the books are also worth looking at. While the movies were made for a more general audience, the books have a lot more depth to them in terms of story, and I think you would enjoy reading them almost as much, if not more, than watching the movies.